Hi, it's Jo and Steve from Freshagenda. Back together again, Steve, after you kind of cheated on me with Matt Gould last week.
Oh, you were operating the camera.
I was behind the camera.
That's good.
So this week we thought we'd give a bit of an overview about what's happening with milk production. And certainly in this part of the world, those of our friends who are in freezing conditions, it's about 100 degrees here today, and we've had some really hot days over here in Australia. And that's certainly belting milk production at the moment, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, year on year declines are pretty healthy, or they're unhealthy, but it's going to take, as has been widely reported, it's going to take Australia's milk production down to a 20-year low. But it's compounded not just by the heat, but by higher water costs, by higher board-in feed prices, obviously. So that's hammering margins, despite milk prices being historically quite good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the December numbers. Obviously, the November numbers are what we're reporting on there, but December was quite wet for parts of Australia, and it is very patchy. Obviously, northern Victoria up through New South Wales and into Queensland, terrible, but other regions not quite so bad. So we'll watch that with interest. But what does it mean globally, Steve?
Putting it into context, we've estimated that the final quarter of the year production growth globally is just ticking above positive, so down to about 0.2%, which is all right. So that's not a bad thing. It's slowing down the growth. Obviously, the demand side is running much stronger than that. We estimated also that export availability is down about 3%, so the supply onto the market, export market, is falling. So we're using up stocks. When you look at the production numbers, the fall in Australia is significant. You line it up against Europe, it's just a little bit below what Europe's actually lost in that same quarter.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, taking into account that that's supposed to be the spring peak of production here.
Yeah, it's true. New Zealand booming. That includes the December actual, which has come out, which is a strong number, 6% up, and we've got the US also lumbering along a lot slower in growth. When you add those up, it's not 100 million litres globally that we've added. All the other nations add up to not very much. So encouraging from a global point of view.
In terms of balance. So what's happening with trade?
So, as you said, we do a big wrap-up of the insights out of our dairy trade simulator, and starting at the high level, global trade is growing quicker in November, up I think 11% year on year. So when you look at milk solids equivalent, the moving annual total, which is what those MSE and MAT stand for, we've obviously stretched out, and that's in record territory. You can see on the right where it's coming from in terms of products, and quite a strong surge, obviously skim milk powder grown, but also seeing a big flurry in whole milk with higher availability out of New Zealand.
Sure.
So drilling into this a bit more, whole milk powder trade is picking up, but it's still well down on where it was a few years ago, even a couple of years ago. So,
yes, in those heady China days.
But following that big peak, as that scaled down, we're sort of starting to rebuild off what was a pretty low base. Skim milk powder, quite different, has remained pretty strong, just risen above where it was earlier in the year in terms of annual total, and in both cases, low prices fix low prices.
That's right, as the old saying goes.
The stunning numbers recently come from New Zealand, which had the highest export month ever in December. Whole milk powder trade, 151,000 tonnes into China alone, biggest single month, and it rose over year on year by 35% in total. So there's lots in that. We don't want to talk about the full China story here because that's complicated, depending on which set of numbers you look at. Putting that those New Zealand numbers into context, though, the dependence on China has grown significantly. So while the Chinese trade is growing, trade everywhere else is falling. And I think is also what I also worked out is just the share that China's represented. So in the last year, the share that China has of New Zealand exports has gone up quite a bit. Sure. I think from 47 to 55%. When you look at the month of December, it was 2/3 of New Zealand trade to export shipments.
Massive.
So the dependence has shifted back towards China. For the Kiwis, we'd hope it stays there, but Let's see, as we go to cheese. Cheese is pretty flat, not much excitement here, year on year, and it's quite a patchy story around. So the former growing developed markets have gone into slowdown.
Yes.
Japan's propped it up quite a bit, and it's quite a mixed bag. So not all that great. Go to fats. Fats are also in recovery. These aren't the total numbers. What I've pulled out here, which is of interest, is what's happening in the developing world, which did provide quite a bit of that recovery when we saw it climb. We had big volumes from Southeast Asia and China come after we had those strong prices, but it's just waned. So that growth has slowed down. So there is a conditional, demand there around, depending on prices. Yeah, that's a price sensitivity that's understandable. And given that in some of those countries, their currencies have also weakened in the last few months. Exactly. All right. You like talking about this guy and Phil. What he's been up to, your mate. Yeah, Hogan. So he's feeling pretty pleased with himself, having just about cleared the massive skim milk powder mountain. There's only just over 3,000 tonnes left for the next tender in early Feb. And Commissioner Hogan thinks it's a job pretty well done. He's even started putting out fact sheets about the glorious story of this sell down. So you can tell things are feeling pretty pumped in the Commission offices. Let's hope, given Brexit, we don't need it again very soon. But Yes. Surely it's not that bad. So one of our favourite charts, which shows where prices have tracked, wholesale prices in Europe, against a turnover index we construct out of skim milk powder stock. So steady building here, very right of that chart, shows the steady build as those stocks have cleared, and its turnover picks up. Yeah, and just again drawing attention to the fact that line is very much following that index now that those stocks are virtually eliminated. Yeah, you can see where that it was a departure. So when intervention was essentially closed and it wasn't coming out, tightened the market a bit, prices went up. They've steadied and going up again. Chart on the right showing you recent history of futures. Futures prices since early December on a couple of contracts. Interesting how the April number has flattened out. It has, yeah. And there is a bit of talk that maybe you're going to see that being a bit quieter now. The price rise is mostly happened. Looking for a bit of direction. That could well be about Brexit. And the uncertainty that comes in the coming months. Absolutely. If there's a bit of milk to move away from cheese. Sure. So there's that will go into skim. So, chart of the week, Joe. Chart of the week. This week we're looking at the year-on-year product changes within the EU, and obviously that's fairly critical for what's going on with global market balance. And what's interesting there, I guess, is with the latest numbers out of the EU for November, there's been a big dip in whole milk powder and skim milk powder production. So as we would expect, as milk availability tightens, that EU processors will prioritise cheese and to a lesser extent butter. And this is the big bet being made by the trade that's scooped up that intervention product coming out, that the skim milk powder number gets worse as we go forward, and that there is going to be, price is still fairly low, there is going to be some scope there to put more product in the market. Exactly. As this falls. So and really for whole milk powder, Europe's not all that competitive, so that's really just being made to order. So not much whole milk powder coming out of Europe. Particularly losing share in North Africa and in those markets in recent times because of the South Americans. So this is an interesting chart to watch. Really well selected there, Joe, in terms of chart of the week. It's quite an interesting picture. Yeah. Okay. That's a wrap from us. Thanks for watching. It's good to be back in sunny Melbourne, and we'll see you next week.